President Eisenhower impacted society in numerous ways by taking part in numerous international affairs, civil rights milestones, and much more. In my eyes, he was a successful president for the following reasons. One of President Eisenhower's most impactful decisions was the passing and approval of the Federal Highway Act. He is often seen as the father of the interstate highway system. A few years after his inauguration, Eisenhower came to the realization that the number of Americans who owned an automobile was continually increasing, and so he set in motion the largest public works program in American history. The $25 billion project produced over 40,000 miles of highway and did wonders for the American economy. The interstate highway system made distribution of goods by transport truck fast and efficient. Thousands of tons of goods were on the move from state to state, and factory production was booming because of it. The economy wasn't the only thing affected by the construction of these highways. American road culture was also encouraged, and cheap hotel chains such as Howard Johnson were created and located near highway exits, along with other convenience stores and fast food joints. So not only did Ike establish a powerhouse economy, but he also created an American identity that still lives on till today. During President Eisenhower's time in the White House, the civil rights movement gained momentum. Many major key moments in history regarding the treatment and equality of African Americans in the United States, such as the Brown v. Board of Education case, the Little Rock crisis, the desegregation of the military, a Civil Rights Act, and even the infamous Rosa Parks case, took place while Eisenhower was in power. Ike handled these matters with great concern, as he felt that all peoples were born equal and should be treated as such. The beginning of the civil rights boom in the 50s started in 1951 with the Brown v. Board of Education case. It started with a little girl named Linda Brown who was forced to walk several miles to get to a black school when there was a school just around the corner. She was unable to attend this school simply because it was a whites-only school. Her parents saw this as unacceptable, and so they informed the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, who then took the matter to the Supreme Court. After 3 long years, the case finally ended on May 17, 1954, with the court ruling in favor of Linda Brown and the other African American children like her, because they saw that the segregation in education was unconstitutional. Segregation in schools was finally illegal. However, Eisenhower stayed very quiet about civil rights at this time, even as civil rights supporters looked to him to enforce the decision of the Brown case, but he avoided endorsing the Supreme Court's decision, a silence that encouraged resistance to school desegregation. It wasn't until a new crisis erupted in Little Rock, Arkansas, that Eisenhower had to step in. The governor of Arkansas refused to obey the law regarding segregated schools. Eisenhower met with the governor and believed that after their meeting that they had come to an agreement, but several days later, 9 African American students enrolled in a school in Little Rock and a full-scale riot erupted. The situation quickly spiraled out of control, and the governor did nothing to stop the violence. Finally, the mayor of Little Rock appealed directly to President Eisenhower for help. Eisenhower placed the Arkansas National Guard under federal control and sent 1,000 U.S. Army paratroopers to assist them in restoring order in Little Rock. The students were soon able to enroll with no more violence to hold them back, and the law had been upheld. But Eisenhower was criticized both by those who felt he had not done enough to ensure civil rights for African Americans, and also by those who believed he had gone too far in asserting federal power over the state. No matter what anyone says, Dwight acted in the right way and stood up for what he believed in the end, even though he did not act early on when he should have. When it was most needed, and when race relations were at a critical point, he stepped in and did what a president should. For this reason, he was impactful, and to me, he was successful in his endeavors of maintaining equality in the country. The Korean War was a result of the tensions of the Cold War. Korea became strongly divided between a Soviet-backed government in the north and an American-backed government in the south. However, after back-and-forth fighting and after casualty upon casualty, the war was beginning to come to an end. It was all because of Dwight Eisenhower. It wasn't until he came into power that an armistice was signed on July 27, 1953. He used unethical tactics such as manipulation and threats of dropping nuclear bombs to end the war, but it worked. And so for this reason, he should be recognized not only as a great president, but a hero as well. He saved the lives of thousands of American troops, and for that we should all be grateful. It was only 6 months into his presidency that he was able to do this, and he truly saved the world from a possible Third World War. So in conclusion, Dwight Eisenhower was historically significant for making effective changes for the United States and for the larger global community. He fought for the equality for African Americans, ended a major war, and created a form of transportation that still lives on to today. However, he was not only an effective president, but a very decorated and respected war hero. He was a key figure in the organization of famous military operations in history, including D-Day. He was one of the most important generals of World War II and led the Allied forces to victory. And lastly, his farewell address in 1961 warned the citizens of America about the dangers of the military-industrial complex. This should have been eye-opening for the peoples of America because they had all become so obsessive and wrapped up in military operations that the misuse of power and the abuse of power may turn out to be detrimental. It is clear through this presentation that Eisenhower was a man of great historical significance due to the effective change and progress he was able to make while in office.
On at least one occasion, Eisenhower was heard to say by those in the room, "God help this country when somebody sits at this desk who doesn't know as much about the military as I do."
My fellow Americans, this evening I come to you with a message of leave-taking and farewell, and to share a few final thoughts with you, my countrymen. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development. Yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes.